For another year, North Carolina Central is in that elite tier of the MEAC, and head coach Trei Oliver joins to break down his team and the evolving landscape of the conference. Oh yeah, it's Locked On HBCU. Play my music.
You are Locked On HBCU, your daily podcast covering HBCU sports. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On HBCU podcast, your number one daily one-stop shop for everything HBCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And now, of course, I'm Darrion Gray, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, Texas Southern alum and former TSU Herald sports editor and current site expert at Who Dat Dish. Thank you for going on this journey with me. Make a Locked On HBCU your first listen of the day every day. And remember, just because the mic cuts off does not mean that the journey is over. Just means it's time to follow me on Twitter at South Exclusives. Starts with an S and ends with an S. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is around the corner, and visit FanDuel app today to start planning your future bets. Now, I'm not on this journey by myself. I'm joined by, for the second time, North Carolina Central head coach Trei Oliver. I'm excited to bring this interview to you. And he broke down some really interesting things about his team, the changes they've seen over 2024 to 2025, and then, of course, the changes in the MEAC. And I promised a treat. Today I have head coach of North Carolina Central, Trei Oliver. This is the second year in a row that we've been able to sit down. I got a better chair. Well, actually, I don't have a chair. I hope you got a better chair this time. But I'm standing. So if I start sinking, that means my knee's going out. It's time to wrap this thing up. But we're going to preview the 2025 season for North Carolina Central, and as it's been for the last couple of years, is expected to be a big season for the Eagles. But every coach gives this cliche, one game at a time, just trying to start 1-0. What game are you looking forward to? Just the first one, right? And you got a big first game, so I'll let it slide. North Carolina Central versus Southern. How are we feeling going into this matchup?
Big game, man. Huge matchup. You know, obviously, Southern is ranked on number one in the West, and great program. Coach Gray has done a great job down there. That's a good friend of mine, and I know he's going to have those guys ready to play. And one thing about Southern, they always, athletic at the skill positions and really big up front. So, first game coming out the gates, we're going to have to be ready to roll, man. Obviously, I think the key to the game is we can't do anything to beat ourselves. Putting ourselves in bad situations, whether it be penalties, turnovers. Things of that nature. So, we have a saying right here, Eagles can't beat Eagles. Mm-hmm. So, we just got to come in, play one play at a time, and see where let the chips fall where they may. But I do say this, I like my football team.
I'm not surprised. I
do like my football team.
You still got connections out there at Southern? I know you were talking about how you were good friends with Graves, and I know you spent some time out there in Baton Rouge.
Oh, yeah. Stay locked in Baton Rouge, man. They got the Blue Store down there in Tony, so I got to, stay locked in. I still get my crawfish shipped up here on dry ice. So, you know, in the season, we had some crawfish bowls up here and all that stuff. But, yeah, I met some really good people in Baton Rouge. I enjoyed it down there.
That Blue Store was solid. I had went to Baton Rouge for the first time last year. I usually just drive through on my way back home. But, that Blue Store was solid. I had to see what the hype was about. But this is the second year in a row that you're starting with a big-time SWAC opponent. Right. Last year it was Alabama State. You came out victorious in that one. Obviously, you're hoping for the same outcome in 2025. But with the actual title of the MEAC SWAC Challenge, does this game feel like it has an extra weight placed upon it in comparisons to last year's Orange Blossom Classic?
Well, I'm not going to say just because of the name of it. Whenever we have opportunity to face off against the SWAC teams, it's a rivalry between the conferences. And, it's good to be able to play those guys. And, last year, Alabama State, I think, was picked to win it. They were top of the conference last year, and now Southern's top of the conference this year. So it's good to be able to play the top dogs of the conference. And, you don't get any credit or get any love for beating up on the little guy. So, we like to tangle it up and get in there and lock up with the big dogs of the conference. And Southern is the big dog over there.
I think that stance of you don't get any credit for tangling with the little guys it makes me think about this topic that we talked about on the show earlier this week. I think it was Monday. We do this Monday mailbox, right? And this guy had talked about a school not playing better opponents. You obviously do that all the time. Do you feel like, or what is your opinion on competitiveness versus the financial component of it? Because you guys will go play somebody like Campbell while you could play a bigger school, get a bigger paycheck, but you choose not to do that as often.
Well, as far as the bigger school is concerned, I'm going to play one FBS school a year.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, I try to stay within the region, obviously trying to help my alumni out and, our support staff and the band, the cheerleaders, auxiliary and stuff like that. They can, it's easy for them to travel regionally.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to drive, play all across the country. But, I think that playing those ranked teams and those really good quality opponents will help you in the long run. Obviously, it'll help us get ready for conference play because we have a very tough conference. And secondly, at the end of the season, it's about rankings for me. I want to play in postseason play. Obviously, the goal is to play in the Celebration Bowl, but, if we do fall short there, postseason play is still something we can, hang a hat on. So, we want to be a top 25 ranked team, and we had the opportunity to be that in the last couple of years. So, you can't be ranked, playing unranked teams. So we have opportunity to play guys, and this year we have a very tough New Hampshire team coming in here. Obviously, we have, Southern. We got Florida A&M on the road. So, tough schedule, but that's what I like. I like playing tough schedules.
Yeah, I got to respect it. For me, I think that the competitiveness side of it oftentimes gets overshadowed by the finances, and I get it because at the end of the day, it's a business. But I wanted to get your opinion on that. And this is your second MEAC SWAC challenge, right? This time you're going against a school that you used to coach with, but this is your second time playing in this matchup. We always talk about the season starting and ending in Atlanta. Can you compare the MEAC SWAC challenge versus the Celebration Bowl beyond just the obvious ones for the national championship?
No, man. There's no comparison. You can't, they ain't in the same tax bracket, the same breath. No, sir. Like you said, I played in both of them. One's at Georgia State Stadium at whatever Center Park or whatever that place is called. Nice facility, but it's not the Mercedes-Benz Dome. And obviously, it's so much at stake, in that Celebration Bowl. And the opportunity that I had, the time I played in it against Jackson State, that was an unbelievable feeling in there. And, you could just feel the energy all throughout the game. But it's still a great event. The MEAC SWAC Challenge is a great event. I think ESPN and John Gray have done a really good job over the years with it. So we're excited to go down there and let folks see what we're about.
Now, I've had enough of the cliches, right? I allowed the whole 1-0. We're starting with the first game, but
I'm going to keep it real with you, man.
And that's why I bring you on. I bring you on every single year I'm doing this, right? Because I know that's how you're going to handle it. When it comes to the 2025 season, I have my eyes on one game over everything else. And I'm talking about not just on your schedule, but the entire Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference. It is South Carolina State versus North Carolina Central. That is where my eyes are. When you're thinking about pivotal matchups like that, how do you stay centered so that you don't stay so locked in on one game and overlook somebody else?
It's a lot of meat left in that bone, man. It's a lot that goes on to get into that game. I mean, we haven't even thought about South Carolina State. Obviously, we're focused on Southern and the game we have coming up. But there's so many more games, huge games we had before that. Obviously, our rivalry, North Carolina A&T. We got a huge game against New Hampshire week 2. We have, Division II, Fayetteville State. That is a very tough team. And if we not focused, they can come here and knock us off. So, we've got to be locked in. And the big thing about that is working to get better. You got to get better week by week. So I'm prayerful that our guys and staff will work to get better every week by over that time, whenever we play those Bulldogs.
I'm going through and I'm looking at, this is your fourth of five MEAC games, right? When you're looking at, you don't have to place the weight that I'm going to place on it. But to me, that is a big time game. That is a game that could decide the conference. Would you rather have those type of games early in your conference slate or late like it is right now?
It doesn't matter. We don't dictate who we play, when we play. The schedule rotates amongst the conference. So, back in the day, you used to be able to pick homecoming opponents. And, people say, oh, man, I can't believe they picked us for homecoming. But shoot, now we might have South Carolina State for homecoming next year, So we don't pick opponents. We don't pick the schedule. in conference schedule when we play people. But it doesn't matter. You got to be ready, whether you on the road, at home on the road, or whatever, early in the schedule and late in the schedule. It doesn't matter.
Let me ask you this, though, because I think this part does matter. That game was moved from Saturday to Friday, not just Friday, but Friday afternoon, right? When it comes to playing a game that early on a Friday, what is your message to the fans? Because home field advantage is a real thing. It is something that people are trying to have every week, right? But you might miss a little bit of that at the beginning of the game. So what is the message to the fans with this change in schedule?
I know that a lot of people probably was not a popular decision to a lot of our fans, and it's unfortunate. But obviously, TV and stuff like that is out of our control. But they got to figure out a way to get here. We have a great brand. I think we play really good football here, and it's going to be a lot at stake that game. So Eagle Nation needs to come out, get off work a little early, about lunchtime, and come over here and come to the nest and come support your team.
You hear that? Everybody just go ahead and tell them right now, November 14th, I need half days.
I'll write them a slip to get at their boss. Coach needs me. Coach needs me in the stadium. Yeah, show up.
All right, let's push forward and get a little bit deeper into your team, and then also some of the opponents that you're going to be facing in 2025, because the talk of the MEAC has been some coaching additions that I want to hear your opinion on as we continue with Locked On HBCU. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day. It's a brand new holiday for football fans who live for the bold predictions and preseason hunches. Maybe you think that my Saints aren't as bad as everybody else thinks. Matter of fact, you think they could win the NFC South. These are the type of bold predictions that we're talking about. So for just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season prediction. So whether you're calling out the new MVP, looking at a long shot divisional winner, like I said, or maybe you're even ready to feel confident enough to say this squad is winning the Super Bowl, have at it August 26th. You don't have to wait for the season to kick off. Take a flyer on who's a quarterback who maybe you think all the talk about Jalen Hurts, he's ready to deliver an entire season and win the MVP. Whatever that may be, whoever, Jaden Daniels, right? Maybe you want to talk about JD5. Whoever you think that may be, all you have to do is visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your future bets now, because Future Day is just one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out, what's your favorite team, Coach? Pro team.
Commanders. I'm from Virginia.
Check out Locked On Commanders. You know what
I'm not that dude that lives in North Carolina talking about I'm a San Francisco fan or I'm a Green Bay fan. I don't do that.
Okay, check out Locked On
Virginia, so I'm rock with the Commanders. I just rock with
JD5. Support JD5. And you know what? You got a quarterback of your own coming in for his second year, and that's Walker Harris. So let's talk about what you saw from Walker in his first year as a starter and what you expect from him moving forward.
All right, Walker. Great young man. Really appreciate the fact that whenever I get an opportunity to say this, I praise him for, he stayed and he knew he wasn't going to start over Davies back when Davies was here. And, he was a team guy. He stayed, learned under Davies and was patient. And when he had the opportunity, when his time came, he was ready. And I'm so grateful to have him in the program. Great person. His family is outstanding. Love the kid. When he came last year, I thought that he put a little too much pressure on himself. He wants to be perfect and make all the right throws, and it was a couple of times where he might not have made the right throw or might read, and kind of put a little bit of pressure on himself, too much pressure. So, we had to kind of get him to settle down this offseason, and you miss a throw, you miss a throw. You're not going to be perfect, you're not going to be 100, but it's all good. I think he's gotten better with that, and he's just does a great job of managing the game and taking what defense is giving.
You mentioned about how much weight is on him, and maybe he's placing a little bit more weight on himself. But with the departure of Jamari Taylor, who I thought was really the engine of that offense, great running game that you guys had last year, but he's no longer with the team. Does that shift more responsibility to Walker as the quarterback, or is it still going to be pretty balanced going into 2025?
Well, I don't know if Jamari was injured in the team. Now, Jamari's going to be missed, and he was one heck of a running back. But that O-line opened up some holes for him.
Yes.
So we got to get O-line a little bit of credit right there. But, yeah.
And you're returning all of those guys, too, Coach. So I say, and you're returning all of those guys. So if we're talking about the engine, it is still present. So I think that's a phenomenal point.
Yes, sir. All of them coming back. But, Walker has a great supporting cast, and I don't know if I give my guys enough credit because I say we don't have that true star power. We just have a really good football team. So, we have a great supporting cast on the perimeter with our receivers, unbelievable tight end room, and I think our running backs are really good. Obviously, it's going to be Christian Mosley this year in the backfield, and he's probably, he's the fastest guy on our team. So I'm excited to see him work. But, Walker doesn't have to feel as though he has to press and make every play doesn't have to be a big play. And as long as we end in a kick, whether either a field goal, PAT, or a punt, it's okay to punt the ball. Let's get a couple first downs, punt the ball, and, win field position. But, it's going to be hard for defenses to stop us for 60 minutes. So we'll be able to score and move the ball, things like that. We'll be fine.
And you mentioned Davies earlier. He's now back home as a part of the staff. What impact have you seen with Richard coming back in with the quarterback position, right? Because Walker was with him as his backup for a couple of years. Now he's working with him as a member of the coaching staff.
Yeah, well, he had instant credibility when we brought him on staff. And, with him having to retire medically like that, and it was an unfortunate situation, he had done so much for the university. The least I could do was, look out for him and try to take care of him. So we did bring him on full time. Obviously wanted to get into the profession, and a lot of guys don't know how as far as a GA position or high school or whatever, but we gave him a full-time position. He got his own room, the quarterback room, and then it also took some pressure off of Coach Leone, Matt Leone, our offensive coordinator. Now he can kind of float and bounce around from position to position on the field. But it's great to have him. The guys obviously respect him, and he's been a coach on the field for the last 3 or 4 years, so it's just a little different role. He's not wearing a helmet; he's wearing a hat now.
Yeah, you have some changing on defensive side of your coaching staff as well. Does the change at defensive coordinator impact the philosophy of Eagle defense, or is it still going to be relatively the same, just a different leader spearheading it?
Well, we lost a bunch of coaches. I lost 2 on offense, and I lost 2 on defense. But
yeah, you did.
The culture is the culture here, and it's the way we're going to do things. So I don't think the loss of coaches is really going to hurt us much. The ones I brought in, I'm very pleased with, and these dudes are really, really good. But with Jesse Thompson coming in, well, he was on staff last year, but he's taking over defensive coordinator. For the most part, we're going to run what we ran last year. It'll be a couple of tweaks that we make. But I let my coaches coach. I let Jesse coordinate. I do have a defensive background, but I'm not the coordinator. So I let my guys work. I let Jesse call the plays, and I'm here to support him whenever he needs some help.
And on the field, he's obviously going to have some talented players. And that second and third level, I think you have some really, I would say star power. I know you don't want to call them star power, but I think you got some star power in that second and third level. Who are those voices on the field for your defensive coaches, right?
Hey, man,
you got guys like Darrion. Go ahead.
Let's go back. So you're not giving my bigs enough credit. Now you talking about Walker.
Am I disrespecting?
You talking about Jamari Taylor. You can give my O-line no credit.
Okay. Now let me say this. You were completely right, and I skipped over that. I focused on the skill players. Tell me what I'm missing on that front line, because I'm thinking Urin. I'm thinking Reed, right? Like that's where my mind jumps on the defense. But maybe I'm overlooking some guys that I need to be giving more credit to.
We got some dudes on the second and third level. Obviously, Max Urin is unbelievable, and Malcolm Reed's up for a bunch of awards, and Jelani Vassell back there. We got some guys that back there can play, but it starts up front for me. It's all about the bigs, and my defensive line is very good. And you will see Thomas Johnson. We have a defensive end. He's going to show up on the 23rd, and he's going to turn Atlanta out.
Okay.
That's one of them. Wisdom Sims, defensive tackle, is going to put on a show in Atlanta on the 23rd. So we got some dudes up front, and we're deep. We about 8 to 10 deep up front at defensive line. Now we can talk about the skill guys, man. I got to show my bigs love first, though.
As you should, though, because at the end of the day, I'm looking at those are guys who get a lot of shine, and then you have some of the big uglies up front. Matter of fact, they call big uglies, right? Like
I call mine big sexy now. See that you wrong again. Mine the big sexies. Yeah, they're well groomed. They got their dress nice and twisted neatly and everything like that. Use that good old Irish Spring. They ain't walking around smelling. My guys, well kept, well groomed, all that.
Coach, let's talk about these MEAC opponents that you're gonna face, right? A lot of talking has been done about the idea of Michael Vick and Norfolk State. You got Deshaun Jackson at Delaware State, right? These guys took non-traditional paths. When it comes to being a head coach, you obviously had a different route. But is it one of those things that it doesn't matter what prep you do, you're going to be baptized in fire when it comes to being a head coach? Is that kind of the...
You said that. That was you saying that, baptized and everything else like that. I didn't say that. But no, I did take it. I mean, obviously, I coached a long time, and I interviewed for the job before, and I didn't have coordinator experience, so I had to go to Southern University. Thank God, Dawson Odoms hired me down there as a defensive coordinator, so I got 3 years of coordinator experience and came back here, and I was able to get the head job. But I've been a special teams coordinator for 20 years. I've been a recruiting coordinator for 20 years. So with those two deals, you're kind of dealing with the whole team more so than an offensive defense coordinator.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I do. I'm excited those guys got the job. They're going to bring some eyes and notoriety to the conference. But it's a lot of dudes that have gone through it and put a whole lot of time in. And we waited our turn, like my buddy Sean Gibbs that had to wait forever to get a head job. Bunch of guys. Richard Hayes at Fayetteville State has worked wonders down at Division II Fayetteville State. I thought he would have gotten a Division I job by now. But it's a lot of really good coaches. And that I thought they'd put the time in. But you have to work like heck to put yourself in a situation, and some of it you have to be lucky and for the right situation. But I'm excited to see those dudes. And I told them when we met at the MEAC Media Day, it's like, congratulations, fellas, but it's gonna be tough when they come to Durham for the 3 hours.
All right. Now, because it's funny, I was already knowing I was going to ask you something like this. And then I was riding around today running errands, and it was a song came on. It's by Big Crit, right? It's called It's Better This Way. And at the last verse of that song, he spends this whole verse talking about the journey he had up to this point and how he didn't get there quickly. I'm not going to say easy, right? I don't want to be disrespectful, but he didn't get there quickly. And I think there's some parallels between traditional coaches and non-traditional coaches. Do you feel like your journey was better for you as opposed to jumping into this spot early because you were able to get all of this knowledge to prepare you for this job?
Well, first of all, it makes you appreciate it. I've worked my butt off to try to get to where I am now. And I started off, wasn't making much money at all. And, it was rough. I'm out recruiting. I had to sleep in my car because we didn't have enough money in the budget to try to, get hotel rooms and all this other stuff. So, I started from the bottom and worked my way to where I am now. But it did help me prepare me. It did. And I went through a spot probably about 10 years ago when I was really frustrated because I thought I should have been on that FBS level. I'm looking at guys coaching and listening to guys at clinics. I'm like, I know more than football than that dude. I'm a better coach than this guy. I need, it's my turn. But I had to kind of reset a little bit and reboot and you got to be happy where your feet are and do the best job you can where you are. So I think once I did that, I kind of enjoyed it again. And I'm just going to be the best coach I can here. I can be here. If somebody sees me, cool. And, if I'm offered another job, cool. If not, I'm going to do the best I can here. And we're going to win a whole bunch of football games. And I transitioned from there and got a head job at Central. And, if I don't ever get a call from a Power 4 school or NFL, I'm cool. I'm going to be at North Carolina Central. I'm going to work my butt off, and we're going to win a whole lot of games.
Let's do it. Now let's push forward because I think you said something that was really interesting on the topic of NILs. And I don't think it's something that people have talked about enough. So we're going to discuss this as we close out today's episode of Locked On HBCU. As summer winds down, there's something nice about getting into the routine of not just football, but cooler weather, right? Everybody wants to go outside, and sometimes that blazing heat is just too much depending on where you live. I stay in Texas. I understand, right? Not everybody stays there, but for us Southerners, we get it. You might want to get some patio furniture now. Whether you're just moving in and you need some for the first time, or if you're somebody who has been staying there for a while and you just need new furniture at the house or at an apartment, whatever it may be, get yourself some patio furniture today on Wayfair. Because Wayfair, honestly, even if you don't do patio, room, bedroom, living room, bathroom, kitchen. It's your one-stop shop to refresh your entire home. I just prefer the patio furniture. Last time I got it, delivery was fast, it was free, and even for something big. It didn't matter if it was a bed, it didn't matter if it was a couch, it didn't matter if it was a chair. I looked at all of these things, and all of the delivery was free. So get organized, refreshed, and back into the routine for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. As we're wrapping up today's episode of Locked On HBCU, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day, every day, making it all the way to segment 3, and I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. We're still rolling. Got North Carolina Central head coach Trei Oliver on the line with us out here on video. I love it. And it's the second year in a row we've done this, but this year I feel like you've done a little bit more talking through the offseason, right? And I feel like you had a couple more things that were really interesting, and they were both kind of centered around NILs. And one of the things I want to hear you say at greater length, and really for someone who didn't hear that quote, was the mental health aspect that NIL has after college.
Right. You know, a lot of people were looking at us crazy because we were the only team to opt out in our conference. And I think everybody in the SWAC opted in as well. Mm-hmm. And for me, whatever we do, we're going to have a plan. And at the time when all this came out, we didn't have a plan as far as the NIL, how that looked on our level and our university. I think you need to have some parameters in there. It's a lot to it. Where are we going to get the money from? How much you going to pay these guys? What levels are you going to pay them? Just the big picture. And there's so much stuff we were trying to do with our program. It was just other things we need to take care of first. So obviously we will opt in next year. But the big picture, I think, and it kind of deals more so on the Power 4 level, you know, these guys are getting so much money now, and we're just giving them money and, you know, turning them loose with it. And, you know, when these guys are 18, 19, 20 years old and they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars, $500,000, $1 million, that's a lot of money. And, you know, when you turn them loose with it and there's no plan as far as, okay, we're going to get a fund or we're going to invest this money here. This is what we're going to do with the money. We're not going to just get tattoos and gold chains and scat packs. You know, I think guys need to be financially responsible. And it takes adults in their lives that need to help with this. And then the other thing I said was, you know, if guys don't go to the NFL, they're not forced enough to make it to the NFL. And now how do you go from making $400,000 or $500,000 to making $70,000, $60,000? That's tough. And, you know, you see these people that played in the NBA or NFL and now they filed for bankruptcy. You know, that's got to be tough on you. But the mental health aspect of it, when I had all of this and now it's taken away and I don't have it anymore, how does that affect these young men? And I don't think a lot of folks gave that a whole lot of thought. But I would just like to see, you know, I think these guys deserve the money, but I just wish that they would, and I don't know what all of them are doing with their money. They might be, but I just would love to see these guys invest in their money and let that money work for them.
And I love that. All right. I have no follow-up to that. Right. I just wanted to get that out there. But I do want to know, when it comes to conversations that you're having with your athletes about this before, during, whatever, right? Like, what are we talking to these guys about to make sure that they don't succumb to these pitfalls?
Right. Well, we do a lot of stuff. You know, my motto here is culture over scheme, and the culture in the building is about, you know, good people and treating each other right and walking, talking like a champion, everything we do. But part of our culture in the building is educating these young men and, you know, growing them. It's so much bigger than football. That's what we do. That's not who we are. So, like, when you look at our GPA, that's over 3.0. You look at our APR score, we had a perfect score of 1,000. It's so much more that we do in our program other than football. So when it comes to financial literacy and things of that nature, we have things in place for our student athletes. And, you know, that's just one of them. Now, obviously, we do have cost of attendance. So our student athletes are getting money, just not the whole NIL deal right now. They will get that, and we're going to talk about some things. And, you know, my financial advisor and some other folks coming in to talk to our student athletes about, you know, how to make your money work while you're in school.
And you have other schools, as you mentioned, in the MEAC. You guys are the only ones who didn't opt in. How do you think that affects recruiting and the competitive nature of accumulating talent before we get on the field.
Right. I mean, when people come to office, and I've had it happen several times, and, it happened with some transfers, and that's why I don't really mess with them. But we had some people come in here, and the first thing they want to talk about is like, how much y'all paying? That's nothing. You're going to come here and get a good education. You're going to be a part of a really good football team. And you get a chance to see like who really loves football and who's about football and who's about the money. Now, we're going to take care of our guys, but our first part of the conversation, it's like dating somebody. You date a woman, going to take her out the first time. First thing she says is some money. Hold, baby, we got to pump the brakes right there. But a plan. We got to have a plan. So our guys, it's going to come down the pipeline. Our guys are going to get paid. But, again, when you're dealing with children, adults not in each other's pockets. So your coworker, you don't talk about how much people making. Mm-hmm. But these kids 18, first thing they want to do is go in the locker room. How much you getting paid, man? I'm getting paid $5,000. Oh, man, I'm only getting paid $3,000. But when the kid with $3,000 has got better stats than the kid with $5,000, now guys are in the locker room bumping heads. And, you hear horror stories from these big-time schools. Guys protesting, not showing up for practice, and all of this stuff. So for me, it's going to be structured. It's going to be a cap on how much guys get. And, obviously it's going to be some things that you have to do, benchmarks you have to meet, and it's going to determine how much you get paid.
Now, when it comes to competing with transfers, not guys coming into your program, but guys going out or potentially going out in big schools, and they're dealing out six figures. How do you compete with that? Like what? And I know you can't compete with it financially. So what do you do? Just sit and hope that they don't pick it, or is there some sort of strategy you use?
Hope is not a plan. Now we'll sit down and talk to him. Like when Davies got offered some money, his last year, I sat down and talked to Davies. I had to re-recruit Davies, and I showed him, look, man, this is what we can do. You can rewrite the record books here at Central. You can be the man at Central. Everybody's gonna remember you. You come back, bring your family back to Durham for homecoming. They gonna roll out the red carpet for you forever. So when I talked to him about that, he understood. And, I can't match what they're doing financially.
Right.
But as far as your college experience and your legacy that you're going to leave here in Oklahoma Central, he couldn't pass up on that. So he stayed. And on the flip side, obviously I knew that he was locked in to me. So that's why I ended up hiring him back. But for example, Jamari Taylor, and I've had a bunch of other guys that left and got a whole lot of money. And I wish them nothing but the best. Them guys making more money than I make. So I can't knock them for that. And, I wish them the best. But right now I already have a list of guys, and I think you need to do this every year, that might potentially get poached and leave at the end of the season. So when I got my guys get juniors and going to the senior year, I already have a list of them. If they're all conference or all American, it's a good chance folks are going to be in their ear. And we just have to prepare for that and get ready to go ahead and replace them. Now, I lost 2 last year that were freshmen, and they got big money from West Virginia and University of Minnesota. And that hurt me because I wasn't prepared to lose young guys. Right. Once they got older, the junior, senior year, I kind of feel that they'll start, people are going to start getting in their ear. But the young ones kind of hurt me a little bit.
No, that's unique. I don't know if a lot of people are doing that, but I think that is a good plan. Now, I'll ask you this. It's been one game every year for the last few years, right? In 2022, you were able to punch through. What was the difference between that season and these other games where you're one game short? And do you see that difference in your 2025 ball club?
Well, I spent all off season trying to figure this thing out. And, it goes back, it keeps going back. What can I do better? What can my staff do better? What do we have to do? And the biggest thing I keep coming up with and is you just have to continue to improve. And I thought we had a really good team the last 2 years. We just fell short. We had one bad half in 23, and we had one bad quarter. A bad quarter in 23 and a bad half against South Carolina State last year. We got started off slow, came back, made a run at the end of the game, and then came up a little short. But you have to play really good football when you're in conference, and we can't slip up, and you can't start slow. So we must start fast throughout the game, and we must improve throughout the season. I think it's simple as that. And, South Carolina State was a really good football team. But we're going to get it figured out this year, man. And we're going to figure it out. We're going to figure it out.
All right. Well, hopefully at the end of the year, I'm talking back to 2-time Celebration Bowl champion Trei Oliver. So if that happens, we got to get you back on. Regardless, we got to see how the year turns out and get you back on Locked On HBCU. So thank you for coming on. Second year, maybe 2 times. But
Thank you for having me.
In the meantime, in between time, until the next time we hear each other, family, we'll be back Monday mailbox. Let me hear what you think about Oliver's comments, what you think about some of the topics we discussed, and maybe we'll respond on Monday's episode. But in the meantime, in between time, until the next time we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.